Is your practice tired of wrestling with insurance denials, deciphering EOBs, and watching your revenue slip through the cracks? You are not alone. Welcome to The Claim Game, the podcast designed to cut through the confusion and provide you with the best practices for revenue cycle management success. We are Jeremy and Kathryn Zug, and we've been with people just like you in the trenches. Each week, we'll break down complex billing processes, share real-world solutions from practices like yours, and ask questions of the game makers and changers of healthcare so you can take control of your revenue. Let's turn those claim denials into deposits and help you return to focusing on patient care. It's time to win the claim game.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Claim Game. I'm Jeremy Zug.
And I'm Kathryn Zug.
And as a reminder, we're going through the revenue cycle management best practices. The last time around the table, we talked about steps 1 and 2 of the credentialing process, which are information gathering and application completion.
We're currently focused on the credentialing territory on the board, which, if you remember, is that home base that we are stuck in until we establish our payers with in-network contracts or Rule of 6. A quick reminder, if you missed the initial setup and want to understand the full scope of the board and how the 6 domains or territories of billing work together, be sure to check out round 1 for the complete overview.
Today, we're going to zoom in on the credentialing application follow-up, and we'll cover stage 3 of the credentialing process in more detail. So let's get ready to analyze its unique challenges and discover the optimal moves to conquer it. Let's get going.
So we barely scratched the surface of what it means to actually do credentialing, because after you've painstakingly gathered all the information and you've submitted the applications, whether it's through CAQH, a payer portal, or even old school paper forms, that is when we start a new game called the waiting game. And often the real frustration kicks in.
Yeah, I mean, and waiting is an active process. So the dreaded credentialing black hole. So you hit submit and suddenly it feels like your application has vanished into the abyss. Crickets, silence, maybe a phantom email that says processing. It's enough to make you wonder if anyone even saw it.
Exactly. And that feeling of uncertainty is a huge source of anxiety for practice owners, especially if you're new to this. You've done your part, but you're not getting any feedback, and that can lead to significant delays in your start date, which directly impacts your revenue.
That's right. So today we're going to be pulling back the curtain on that black hole. This episode is called Rolling the Follow-Up Dice, because that is often what it feels like. A gamble of chance. However, we're going to transform that passive waiting game into an active strategic process. We'll show you how to set up a system to track your follow-up, make it more than just rolling those dice, and give you the essential questions to ask when you follow up. Because getting credentialed can be active, not passive.
Okay, so let's get practical then. The first step to escaping the black hole is to create your own, quote, mission log, a system to track every single credentialing application. We at Practice Solutions have designed a credentialing application follow-up log specifically for this purpose, and you can find it in the Hourglass Learning Hub. You could think of something like that as it's a log for mission control for credentialing. So for every application that you submit, whether it's a new credentialing application, a re-credentialing application, a change form, you're going to create a new line item at mission control.
That's right.
Here is what you need to track. So you'll have insurance company, which payer is it for, provider name, who is the application for, status. You're always going to start it as a new item, but once the application is submitted, you change that to application submitted.
That's right.
You'll have an initial submission date, the day you hit send, the employee name who completed the application. This is important for KPIs for later, which we'll talk about, and it just will help us identify if there are significant lags in your credentialing process. One of the places that you're going to want to look is there a common denominator of what employee is submitting all of your applications. So again, we'll talk about that more in future episodes. And then notes. This is crucial, and I've spent a lot of time talking about the importance of notes, but this is where you'll jot down everything from a call reference number to any specific instructions that you receive. And then you're going to put a next follow-up date, and this is the game changer. This is the thing that will make you active instead of passive, telling you exactly when to engage next.
So, Kathryn, let's talk about that next follow-up date. When is the right time to roll these follow-up dice? Is it immediately, a week later, a month? Because we all know that feeling of being anxious and wanting to call every single day.
Yeah, I've been there. You want to call immediately, but you also don't want to annoy the reps on the other end, because I feel like you could liken it to a waiter spitting in your food because you've been rude. So just like, don't put yourself on a black log or, so there's a sweet spot. But I would say for the very first follow-up, that should happen relatively quickly. 3 to 5 business days after submission. The goal here is really simple. You just want to confirm receipt and processing. Even if you have submitted online and you got a confirmation number and maybe you have a screenshot of that, I would still call and confirm with a human that they see it on file on their end, and then also take that screenshot and put it in your log. But the human touch early on can prevent a lot of headaches.
Yeah, I love that. It's like sending a package with tracking and then calling the post office to make sure they actually scanned it. Just give you peace of mind, make sure it's moving forward.
Yep, exactly. Once you receive confirmation, you can change that status in your credentialing application log to application in process. And while you have that human on the phone for the initial check-in, you're going to ask 2 very important questions that will guide your entire follow-up cadence. And I believe we talked about this when we introduced credentialing, but we're going to talk about this in greater detail. So first, how long do you anticipate processing will take? And they might give you a range. 2 weeks. That's funny. That's not going to happen. 6 weeks, whatever it is, log that. This helps manage your expectations. Even if they say 6 months, that will help. And then you have something to work towards. So if it hits the 6-month mark and you haven't gotten an approval, now you can put on some more pressure and you can call more often and all of that. And then the second question that you want to ask is, how will we be notified if there is an issue or a denial, and how soon will that notification be sent out after the issue occurs? This tells you whether you're waiting for a letter in the mail that could delay you, or if there's a more efficient online notification. So you're going to note the answers to both of those questions in the log note section. And then I would actually I would also put it in my insurance contact reference guide, because the log is something that moves. It's not static. Once you work through them, you're not going back and looking at this. The insurance contact reference guide is where you're going to keep long-term payer notes, and there's a credentialing section. While I'm talking about this, notice the other fields in this document that you should be tracking, and it will be up on the screen. It will say best credentialing follow-up method, credentialing application follow-up phone number, credentialing follow-up email, credentialing follow-up call route, meaning if I'm on the phone and I've called the credentialing line, the prompts are going to help give me a bunch of options. What's the route to get where I need to go to get an update, which is extremely time-saving, because then I'm just going to write, 312. I don't have to listen.
Yeah, you got to get that phone tree, like some kind of healthcare monkey getting a banana.
There you go. And then credentialing application follow-up portal route. Same kind of thing. What is the route in the web page to get where I need to go? If you don't have any of this information, I would get that also while talking to a rep. But the idea is that you're kind of building your own cheat code as you go. And the earlier you can build that, like let's say it's your first time credentialing with Aetna and you're going to add a bunch of providers to Aetna, it is going to be a great advantage to you to have that the first time you do this than to wait until the 10th.
Huge.
So this information is also invaluable for setting your next follow-up date in your log.
Yeah. Great. So let's say they tell you, we'll just send you a letter. It takes 90 days minimum, which again, that's more realistic, I think. What then? Are you just passively waiting for that snail mail?
I wouldn't be.
No.
I mean, people do, but not me. So if their notification process is slow or unreliable, I think that's your cue to be more proactive. Our recommendation then becomes to follow up every 2 weeks after that initial confirmation. So that just means that there's a regular check-in point. And 2 weeks is kind of that sweet spot that you're not being overly annoying, and things change within that amount of time. So you're making a phone call or you're sending an email if you have a responsive rep just to get a quick peek at the status. You're not calling every day, but you're being consistent. And I think that this active follow-up helps identify and resolve any issues promptly enough rather than waiting weeks to find out there was a missing document or a small error that stalled your application.
Yeah, 100%. So you're calling even if you expect to hear it's still processing?
Yeah, on the rare occasion, you'll get a pair that literally says, do not call us. Yeah. That does happen.
You know who you are.
And then you really do just have to sit on your hands. That is something you can't really change. Yeah. But most likely that's what you'll hear. It's still processing. But you still call because you don't want to miss that one time when there's a more substantial update. Imagine waiting passively only to find out weeks later your application was denied because of one tiny fixable error that you could have addressed on day 5. That's a revenue killer.
Yeah, for sure. So
This episode was brought to you by Insurance Billing Basics. Steps for therapists to successfully take insurance. As mental health clinicians, you're experts at patient care. But let's be honest, insurance billing isn't usually covered in grad school. We've felt that educational gap for a long time, and that's why we poured years of billing expertise into one game-changing resource, our book, Insurance Billing Basics by Kathryn Zug. Think of it as the crash course in revenue cycle management you never got to take, like putting on corrective lenses to truly see how insurance works and how your practice's billing can improve. Whether you're already taking insurance and want to feel more confident in the basics, or you're ready to finally take the plunge and start, this book is for you. It's truly the best $20 investment you can make for your practice. Ready to gain clarity and take control? Get 15% off Insurance Billing Basics today by clicking the link in the show notes.
What kind of updates are you actually looking for during these follow-ups?
So here are the main ones. 1, we need more information. This is a flag that something is missing or needs clarification. 2, your application was denied. This stings, but it happens. 3, your application is in final review. Almost there. And make your next follow-up just 1 week out instead of 2. Or 4, your application has been approved. The best news. When you get an update, you're going to log it, no matter what the update is. And the screen should actually be showing a video of us updating the log as we go. So if you want to see how we use it, come to YouTube and watch how we do it. And then update the status, note any action items, and then set your next follow-up date accordingly. If you're lucky enough to find that online pizza delivery style progress bar that I mentioned in a previous episode, bonus. But even then, if it sits at processing for more than the processing time that you were quoted, pick up the phone.
Yeah, so let's address the giant elephant in the room, denials. So what if the dreaded application denied hits your log?
Well, unfortunately, if you have a denied application, there's not a lot you can do in terms of appealing it. You're going to update the credentialing application follow-up log to application denied, and you typically have to start over at square one and resubmit a full application. However, you have already filled it out before, so if you have the record of that, which I would keep, it won't be like you're starting from nothing.
Which is good.
But here's the important part. If you are denied, you really must speak to a person who can tell you every detail about why or what about it was submitted incorrectly, so that you can document that in as much detail as possible on that insurance contact reference spreadsheet. Use it as a learning experience. This information is very precious for preventing future application denials. You can often find people on the insurance side who will walk you through the application step by step. It's really just a matter of finding the right people on the insurance side. So I think people are so used to that not being the norm that they don't ask.
Yeah.
But there are people on the other side that will walk you through it. So if your rep is not doing that, be as bold as to ask for someone else.
Yeah, amazing. Because ultimately, the insurance companies want and need providers in their network to serve their members. So they should be helping you navigate through this.
Right. So once you get that exciting approved status, you will be waiting for that official contract offer to finalize the relationship.
So should you do follow-up regularly while you're waiting for that too?
I would, yeah. When
Great.
you get an approval notice via email, portal, or even if you're on the phone with the rep, you can ask them how you're going to receive your contract and around what date. And then again, that will guide your follow-up activity. If you haven't at least received it by the quoted date, give them a call and find out where it is. I would probably, if I got notification that I was going to get a contract, I would probably bump my follow-up like a whole week.
Oh, smart.
I'd be calling every week
Yeah,
until I hear something. In your credentialing application follow-up log, the status of your application is still in review with payer until your contract is received, at which time you will change the status of the application to contract received. It's not rocket science,
No.
but it is hopefully organized and clear. And once you receive a contract, you will move to stage 4, which is contract finalization.
Which is very exciting. So to sum this up, 1, get a system, use a log to track every application and its status. 2, initial check-in, call 3 to 5 business days after submission to confirm receipt and ask those 2 key questions. 3, proactive cadence, follow up every 2 weeks, especially if initial responses are slow. 4, document everything. Notes are your best friend for learning and avoiding future pitfalls. And 5, don't give up. Don't quit. Denials happen, but learn from them, resubmit, stay gritty.
Yeah, rolling the follow-up dice doesn't have to be about luck. But true follow-up is about strategy, consistency, and having the right tools. I think your tools are so important. By taking control of this process, you empower your practice, reduce stress, and ensure that your hard-earned revenue actually makes it into your bank account.
That would be good.
Yes.
Yeah, because your time is best spent focusing on your patients, not wrestling with cryptic insurance processes. Escaping the credentialing abyss is entirely possible when you approach it with a plan.
Yeah, I actually would like to review those tools one more time that we recommend using during the credentialing process, okay? The first is the credentialing document checklist, which we introduced in rounds 3 and 5, which is how you gather really important practice information and provider information as you add providers. 2, the insurance contact reference list, which includes tips and contact information for each of your payers, in-network payers usually. This should be kept up to date to help you through every move on the game board. This is like I said, I'd say that's your biggest cheat code right there. Okay.
For sure.
It is meant to be your ultimate cheat sheet. You'll keep relevant eligibility and benefit information. What's the best way to get the most accurate eligibility and benefit information? Is it through the portal? Is there a special phone number? Are there specific questions I should ask every time to get the most accurate information? All of that will be in that section of the insurance contact reference list. And then you have claim follow-up information. How am I getting remittances from the insurance company? If I don't get a remittance or I have a question, where do I go? Who do I call? Do I have a contact? All of that will be in that section. And then, relevant to this episode, relevant credentialing information for future reference. Very important. And then the third resource is the credentialing application follow-up log, which is what you use to track the progress of applications that aren't yet approved. And finally, the credentialing matrix, which is what you use to track the credentialing makeup of every finalized contract that is associated with your practice. We have touched on this one really briefly, but we'll talk about it a lot more in the next 2 rounds because it has to do with finalized contracts. But we introduced that resource to our team after years of talking about making it. And they immediately said, why don't we have this for every practice we work with? We need this because it is so important to good RCM to know exactly how everybody in your practice is
Credentialed.
credentialed.
Yeah, that's right. And you're going to get denials at first that say NPI not registered.
Yes.
And if you have all this stuff documented, you can challenge this stuff pretty easily.
Totally.
But if you come up with question marks around this information,
and the number of
stuck.
times that we onboard new practices and we say, how are you credentialed?
Who
are you credentialed with?
Who knows?
I don't know. I think I've been in network with them. I'm pretty sure I am. I was once. No.
Not a good sign.
That's not good. Well, is now a good time to draw a case study card?
I think so.
So we're going to ask the question, do you know a practice that has done a poor job at follow-up that led to devastation, or a practice that did a great job with follow-up and beat quoted lead time?
Yeah, this is a good one. I want to bring up a success story, not a bad one, a good one that highlights how much power you have when you get your act together and strategize. We often hear about credentialing being this slow, empty abyss, yeah? Like trying to convince a cat to take a bath. But if you have this strategy and these tools that Kathryn is talking about, you can really see this. Here's a practical example of when we saw this. We worked with a group practice for a long time here in Michigan. This was a group that provided a lot of telehealth resources. It was the height of COVID. Everybody was panicking. But this practice was really smart. They knew that credentialing could be a major bottleneck for onboarding new clinicians and onboarding them rapidly, especially for this group relying heavily on telehealth services. Instead of just reacting, they got really proactive. So before a new clinician even officially joined the team, the group had gathered all the information in a central location, and they had the application ready. They were ready to hit the send button as soon as humanly possible. And here's where they really became credentialing connoisseurs. It wasn't just about submitting fast. They understood that each payer, because they were in network with multiple payers, had its own ecosystem and lead times for these applications.
I bet they kept good notes.
They kept great notes. They had clear processes. They knew exactly who was supposed to do what. It was like a machine. And they didn't just know what to submit. They knew precisely when to follow up and with whom to follow up. That right there was the secret sauce, folks. They built and maintained excellent relationships with their reps, with the insurance companies. It wasn't just cold calls. It was precise. It was surgical.
I think that's what I mean too earlier in the episode when I said, if that hasn't been your experience with a rep, you just need to boldly ask for a different,
sure.
You can definitely work your way up the chain to get to the person that's going to be that for you.
And I just remember we could see all of their information. I mean, it was so centralized. We knew who touched it last. We knew how they got credentialed. And this was a practice that exploded in their growth because they were so organized and they were so clear in their communication with both the insurance companies and their own clinicians. Their internal administrative processes were butter smooth. The whole thing became like a no-brainer.
It probably does become very natural after you've done it enough times to know
for sure
how it's going to function. And I know it's really daunting if this is brand new to you, but it does become more predictable as you do it.
Yeah. And for those practices that are looking to grow into a group and bring on clinicians, you want this process to be butter smooth. You want this thing to be so well developed that it's a no-brainer. So where many practices get hung up waiting months or losing revenue because a clinician still can't bill, still can't market, still can't see clients, this Michigan group was able to significantly expedite the movement of those applications through the process. They simply knew the game better and played it smarter than anybody else around. So it's a fantastic example of how truly understanding the revenue cycle management process and credentialing and applying a strategic approach can turn this potential nightmare into a seamless operation. And it shows that insurance transitions, while sometimes like hurricanes, can be managed if you board up those windows and know when to call for updates. This group practice in Michigan isn't just surviving. I mean, they're thriving because they turned this commonly dreaded administrative task into a competitive advantage.
We hope this episode has shed some light on what can feel like a very dark and frustrating roll of the dice in practice management. As a reminder, today we covered stage 3 of credentialing, application follow-up, which is a process you can win with the right tools. And you don't have to use our tools, but you do need to use tools and organization. All the tools we have mentioned can be found in the Hourglass Learning Hub on our website at practicesol.com. Just look for the Hourglass Learning Hub.
Next week, we're going to be talking about stage 4, which is contract finalization. Lots to go through there. And stage 5, start date establishment. So you can get tips on what contract terms to review, negotiate, and look out for before you're officially green-lighted for seeing patients. And you don't want to miss it.
Yeah, thanks for listening. We are Jeremy and Kathryn Zug, and this is The Claim Game.
All right, thanks. See you, everybody. If you enjoyed today's episode of The Claim Game, please take a moment to leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps new listeners to find us. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to The Claim Game on your favorite podcast app. Your feedback means so much to us. We want to provide valuable education about revenue cycle management. So if there's something we didn't cover in our topic that was a burning question for you, please let us know so we can try to get you the information you desire. You can find the links to all resources we mentioned in this episode in the show notes. And if you want to dive deeper into our resources, we have 2 places you can do that. First, you can go to our blog at practicesol.com/blog, where we have 8 years of educational blogs. If you want to learn more about what Practice Solutions does, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Just go to practicesol.com to learn more and to connect with one of our awesome people on our team. Thanks for listening. We are Jeremy and Kathryn Zug, and this is The Claim Game. See you at the game table next time.